I'm Alun Bowden. I'm an occasional contributor to Matchbook. You'd be pleased to know I won't be giving the tips and betting strategy advice for this week. For that, we have the big man, the man himself. Tables are turned. Aidan Sully O'Sullivan is going to be guiding us through this week's action. Welcome, Sully.
Hey, man, I'm not that happy that you're not giving me advice. You told me to back England +9 last week. So you are the man that's in hot form. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you back them for the Six Nations also?
I backed them for the outright on that game, but I had a little sneaky bet on Henry Slade, 150-1 top tournament try scorer.
Yeah, there you go.
Stop clocking all that, Sully. Every now and again I hit one.
I love how you did that because I actually was chatting to you earlier on the phone. I presume that you bet about 50 of these guys, but you only picked 5. So credit where it's due. Slade was outstanding last week. So looking forward to this weekend, Aldo. I think we probably have some good value bets, I hope.
How was your last weekend's betting for you?
Last weekend wasn't bad. So we were meant to do a Periscope last weekend, myself and Swano. Some technical difficulties, Swano's end. So we actually had a conversation without recording it. So we did our own little podcast / Periscope. Swano gave me some good advice on the over in England and Ireland. I was kind of surprised by that because that one generally, that fixture's pretty low scoring. He also told me to back the first half under in Wales and France. 16.5 I got in the end. I was pretty lucky there considering there was about 5 missed kicks and 1 try disallowed. So it was a good first weekend. I have to admit now. And the other game, I got the over up in Italy and Scotland in running. I got 43.5, so I was happy with that. But Italy a good over team, but we'll chat about that in a while.
Yeah. So are you still okay after last weekend's loss to England? Is that still stinging with you a little bit?
You know, it is stinging, but I think it could be one of those games that will suit Ireland, that actually a bit of a wake-up call. Way too much confidence here in Ireland since we beat New Zealand in the autumn internationals. Not a good thing generally when you're playing, obviously, a good English side who had a very impressive autumn campaign, unlucky against New Zealand. And you know, they were very impressive against South Africa and Argentina. But I think it's probably maybe a good thing. It's probably a blessing in disguise for Ireland. You don't want to lose Six Nations game. But they are notorious slow starters, are Ireland. So England just caught them. I thought England were outstanding. I think we both knew that coming in, that they would be a tough test. And I wanted absolutely no part of laying Ireland -9. I actually backed them to win 1-12. That was my bet. I thought it'd be close. I did think Ireland would win, but no, not overly surprised. Disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah, I don't think, we were talking about this earlier, I don't think anyone really expected, even me with my muggy England bets, I didn't think I really expected them to be as on point as they were. They kind of executed a plan perfectly. I didn't really see, they played almost error-free rugby, really. There was a stat, I think 82 out of 82 attacking blocks they won. So, you know, let's not dwell too much on Ireland. I don't want to upset you too much, but, you know, looking ahead to this weekend, just going to focus on the Sunday game first. We have England at home to France. Twickers HQ, whatever god-awful name you want to have for the place. It's a bit of a fortress. England 13.5-point favourites here. That's pretty chunky. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, bit of a fortress indeed. France have actually only won here back in 2005. So I'll tell you, French, notoriously bad travellers anyway, they definitely do not like coming to Twickenham. Looking at this French team that was named this morning, we're recording this obviously on Friday. It's a funny one again. I mean, you've got Bastro back in the team. This seems to me a bit of a step back. He's playing Fico, who I thought should be playing in the centres anyway, on the wing. He's playing another centre, Damien Penaud, on the other wing, Jack Brunel this is. And there just seems to be this complete disorganisation with France right now. And I looked at this number when it opened earlier in the week. I saw some 11 that got swallowed up very quick, headed back towards 12 or 13. It's heading back towards 14 right now, so 13.5 at the moment. England -13.5, pretty crucial number that you get in underneath the 2 converted tries. But what can we say about France last week? I mean, if any team could blow a 16-point lead at halftime, it was the French. I mean, you could have backed Wales at halftime here, Matchbook at double digits at 10-1 if you wanted it. And in all honesty, yes, hindsight is fantastic, but you'd be laying France, you know, against anyone ahead because they don't play 80 minutes rugby. They play in fits and starts, and it's just, they're a team that's so hard to get with. Now, in a Six Nations game, you're getting 13.5 generally. You would think to yourself, you know, that's a good start to get because, you know, generally Six Nations games, they can come down to maybe 1 or 2 scores, maybe a 10-point game. But I'm struggling to make a case for France here. I mean, you look at last week and you look at the autumn internationals when they lost to Fiji, and it's just a continuation of a team that lacks structure. Their defensive patterns aren't great. They're poor at the breakdown. The goal kicking now seems to be an issue, which was never an issue before with Morgan Parra. He came off the kicks last week. Camille Lopez came up. He missed a kick. And just a lot to be kind of, worried about France. One of the main points that came out during the week, Al, about Sebastian Valimahina, didn't actually realise he was the captain during the second half, that the referee, Wayne Barnes, had to come up to him and said, Sebastian, you're the captain. I mean, what other country does this happen with, an international rugby at this level? It's crazy. England, we just touched on it earlier, fantastically impressive. Their defence, their D under John Mitchell has been sensational. I thought that was a weird move when Gustard went to Harlequins in the off-season, but he has come in and he has put a real good shape on them. They're attacking the defensive line. No Atoje, which is a bit of a loss, but you look at Courtney Laws and what he did coming off the bench in Dublin last week. That's big. Jack Noel is out. I thought that was a bit of an unusual one. Chris Ashton making his first Six Nations start since 2013. Big call there. But England have been so impressive. And I'm kind of loath to lay a big number in the Six Nations, Al, but I'm minus 13.5 right now, when I can see it trending towards 14 and 15. Might be a bet. France may keep this competitive for a while, but like I said, England look like a team on a mission. Slight maybe worries in the fact that they had put so much into the Ireland game. They had their training camps away in warm weather, and maybe that might have been putting so much in there. But in all honesty, this French team, I don't want to be with them even against Italy at the moment. They're that bad. And England, like I said, looks like a team on a mission, and minus 13.5. It's still a very playable number. At Twickenham is a tough place to go anyway. The weather, light rain and breeze shouldn't be an issue. Tentative vote for minus 13.5, but I want absolutely no part of France right now, Al.
Even at 6.0 and possibly getting up to, I don't know, maybe even 7.0 before the game.
I think you'll get 8.0 on Matchbook if you want to hang tough for it. Yeah, absolutely. You'll see a lot of money come for the way the line is moving at the moment. It probably will get over to 14 at the moment, which is a very keen on. Might get to 14.5. I think if you post up a Matchbook, there'll be plenty of 8 there. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, our new sign-up offer. If you don't have a Matchbook account, folks, sign up now for £10 risk-free bet. So you can have that £10 risk-free bet on France if you want. And if they lose, which they will, you will get your £10 back. So I think that's a good deal, Al, isn't it?
It's a great deal. It's a great deal. Although I'm not totally as sold on this as you. I maybe touch a little on it here. Like England's performance against Ireland, as we talked about before, was just kind of impeccable. They had great discipline throughout the park. They executed on all of the game plans superbly. That's hard to do in international rugby week after week.
Yep.
Really hard to do. Pretty much only New Zealand and maybe Ireland until recently have been the kind of teams who've been capable of performing at that level. England have showed it in snatches in the past. They certainly tailed off recently. It's France. It's the Six Nations. You've got hotheads like Courtney Laws and Ashton in that team. Fowl with his, trademark tackling abilities. Do you feel that there's a possibility for things to go wrong? That maybe you're focusing a bit too much on France's inadequacies and not enough on England's potential to slip up a little here?
Possibly, but it's hard not to, add, because I mean, look, with this French team right now, when he doesn't seem to know what his best side is, first of all, and that is a major worry. This close out from a World Cup, I think most coaches will give you a pretty good idea what their top 15 is. But Brunel, and he has to be kind of lauded some bit for bringing in the young guys like Roman Ntamak, and he's got Thomas Ramos on the bench now, who's been fantastic with Toulouse this year. But you see the tries they gave away against Wales. I mean, Wales were pretty abysmal in the first half. Weren't much better in the second half, let's be honest. And they still beat France in the Stade de France. So England don't have to be at 100% here. But I think they'll have enough in them. I mean, look, the unforced error is that huge A1. I mean, this is basic enough rugby. Either fall in the ball or kick it dead, one of the two. The pass, the Valimahina pass for the intercept for Lort was absolutely, despicable. Absolutely no justification whatsoever for doing it at that level. And that to me shows a team that is disheveled, disorganized, and doesn't have their wits about them, and just don't have enough. And England probably won't be at the 100% that they were against Ireland. It's 40, like you said, Al, it's very hard to get to that pitch in consecutive weeks in the Six Nations, but they might not have to be anywhere near that. I think 75% England here could be enough even to cover the 14 against France.
Yeah, you've convinced me. If you can still get minus 13.5, dive in when you're listening and watching this. I think that's the way. Okay, let's move on. Let's move backwards to Saturday.
To the big one, Al. To the big one.
Well, the second, maybe the third most interesting game of the weekend after Wales Italy. We've got Ireland, Murrayfield, Scotland. It's really an interesting game because as we saw for the opening weekend, good luck trying to bring any narrative out of those first three games. As I said to someone else, it looks like nobody's going to win the Six Nations based on those performances. But you've got betting here, got Ireland 5.5 points favourites. Do the Irish bounce back, or Scotland were a little under their recent performances in the opening weekend. I mean, how do you see this one go?
Yeah. It's funny about this line. I looked at this early in the week, and I probably had it pegged a bit lower than this. This line seems a bit big to me, and I saw some 6.5 earlier in the week. Now, obviously, Ireland are without Henshaw, Ringrose, Toner, Sander. 4 big losses there. I think Ringrose, there's probably not been enough made of him. He is absolutely crucial to the Irish backline. Henshaw also is pretty big. Yes, he had a terrible game at fullback against England, but I don't think he would have started here on Saturday. You probably would have seen a 12 and 13 maybe of him. I think Aki might have got the chop as well. So what you have now in the midfield for Ireland is Aki and Chris Farrell. For me, however, where Ireland win this game is not necessarily in the backs. It's going to be in the forwards. And the loss of Hamish Watson for Scotland, they're 7, and WP Nell, their tight end, they're pretty huge factors for the Scottish pack that it still, for me, lacks a bit of a bite. They can be a bit flaky. They have some fantastic players in their back line, like Finn Russell, Stuart Hogg, Hugh Jones, and other guys. And, Sean Maitland is back in this weekend. But in the pack, I think this is where, if Ireland are to win, they will have to beat Scotland up front. And the weather conditions right now, we're looking at pretty strong breeze, a good few showers in the Edinburgh region on Saturday afternoon. It will be down to winning the game in the forwards. Now, the line laying this amount of points away from home in Murrayfield for Ireland, I'm not totally convinced. You look back to 2 years ago, this was the game that Scotland caught Ireland on the hop. They were leading, I think it was 21-9 at halftime. They won that game 27-22. So Scotland actually have a very good record in Murrayfield the last couple of years. I think they're unbeaten there in 7, including beating England there last year. So they're a tough team to figure out, Scotland, right now, because they can be pretty flaky, and a lot of it will go how Finn Russell goes at 10, because if you can get to him, you probably do slow Scotland down. But he's been pretty, he's been pretty impeccable form this year, and the move to Racing 92 in Paris has been great. Stuart Hogg, for me, best fullback in the world. Imperious, everything he does with the boot, his attacking ability, his defense, he's absolutely top notch. But I just have those slight worries with those 2 really key guys in the Scotland pack. Like I said, Hamish Watson at 7 and WP and Ella at 3. They are huge losses to the Scottish team, and I think Ireland could have it on the scrum. And maybe Scotland probably would look at the line out as probably maybe an area that they get into. The angle I'm looking at betting wise, Al, Ireland 1-12, currently at 2.6 at Matchbook, is probably my angle. I think Ireland do sneak out a win, but I don't think it's by much, and I don't think it's by more than 12, and I think that's a very solid bet. I have absolutely no interest in laying the points here, though. Just a funny feeling I have that it could be. I mean, at the end of the day, Al, if Ireland are up by 3 or 4 points with 5 or 10 minutes to go, they ain't going to be worried about our handicap. So that's why I think the 1-12 market is maybe a better angle there.
Yeah, are you worried you have a bit of an emotional attachment to this one after last weekend? Are you a bit nervous? I mean, if you strip out the results of last weekend, a wise man once told me, always look for a reason to discount like the last result when you're analyzing a game. If this was the first game up of the Six Nations, would you have been firing into that handicap line, firing into Ireland at -6?
I think it's kind of all relative, Al, because I mean, you look at the lines generally change anyway. Because look, if Ireland had a really good performance against England last weekend, I think this line would be bigger. It could be heading towards 7 or 8, which might surprise a few people. But I mean, generally that's how the lines work. You can only go back on the week previous. There's no major point looking back in November, the Irish performance against New Zealand, because you're obviously missing a few guys, and they weren't at that level last weekend. Now, you're asking me, am I kind of maybe more heart over head here?
Yeah.
I tend to stay away from that as much as possible, because last year one of my biggest bets of the season was on Wales plus, I think it was 12 I got at the time. It finished at maybe 10 and I had to go against Ireland in that cover, and I was absolutely all over Wales. I was telling taxi drivers to back them. I was telling the milkmen, I was telling the postmen, I was telling the cleaners here at Matchbook to back them. Not totally sure they understand what I was talking about, but I'm pretty good personally for staying away from the heart over head one and using my head as much as possible. It can be difficult sometimes. It's not massively difficult here, because I do believe that Scotland, as good as they have been in recent times, they are still small but flaky. I think they're maybe a year or two away from being genuine Six Nations contenders. I think they're on the right track, but I do think that those guys, they don't have maybe the depth in the forwards that Ireland have. I mean, yes, Ireland have lost CJ Standard there in the forwards and Devin Toner, but they'll bring in Jack Conan and Sean O'Brien in the back row, who are, for me, probably even an upgrade on last weekend.
Yeah.
Slight worries there about Quinn Roon, the second row, the fact that he'd be calling the lineouts for Ireland. But I'm expecting a big bounce back game from James Ryan. I think he'll carry a lot more ball and get over the gain line. Remember, I think this English pack was probably well set up for Ireland last weekend. I don't know if the Scots will be as good. If the weather was good, I probably would have been looking at an overplay here. But with the weather not so great, with that strong breeze, I think Ireland would look to keep it tight. They do not want to get involved in this kind of sevens type of game against Scotland, because Scotland do probably have the better backs to hurt them. Ireland will keep it tight, and I think they'll grind one out. And I think at 2.6, just over 6-4, to get that 1-12 margin, I think that's a strong enough play for me this weekend.
That looks like a good bet there. What's your kind of expectation on the totals here? You're suggesting it's going to be a pretty tight game. There's no totals lined up just yet.
Yeah, well, I think we'll be coming online with these shortly, Al. I think it should be about 43.5, 44.5. So I think generally what I would look to play for in these, tighter games, maybe look at the first half total. If you can get over that key number of 21-24, like obviously I don't think we're going to get anywhere near 24, because that would have to be generally a total of 49.50. But if you can get over 21.5, maybe come in then and back the under, because if the conditions are tough. And the great thing about it is that, BBC or ITV or whoever covering this game tomorrow, they'll be on air pretty early, and you can have a look at, there's plenty of websites you can be looking at the weather for the wind, the radar, see what rain is coming in during the first half, and maybe back to first half under there, because sometimes if the score gets a small bit out of hand later in the game, a couple of loose tries, bodies get tired. But maybe it could be a first half where you could be looking at maybe no tries and maybe a couple of kicks of goal from Sexton and Laidlaw. I don't want to get too carried away with the total, because just on that point there regards Sexton and Laidlaw, why I actually make a case for overs a lot of the time are strong goal kickers. Laidlaw doesn't miss any kicks from what I can see. Sexton might miss the odd one, but I wouldn't be getting too carried away. Ireland 1-12 is probably the strongest play still.
Yeah, and I know you're a big fan, like most of the rugby judges, big fan of the weather component. I remember you texting me when I was on my way to the Millennium Stadium, whatever it's called these days, saying, "What's the weather like down there? Any breeze? Any rain coming in?"
I've done worse than that, Al. I've actually picked up the phone and rang hotels that are close to stadiums before, and saying, actually tried to purport to be a guest that's coming. Do I need to bring my umbrella with me that evening? So I'm a pretty sick man in that sense, Al. I won't lie.
You got to get your edges where you can.
Absolutely.
All right, let's kick on to the last game, the highlight of the weekend, obviously for
without doubt, yeah.
Welsh fans. Italy Wales in Rome. Huge changes to the Welsh side, 10 changes.
Yep.
Some of them not necessarily negative to the side, but bigger coming in at 10 is possibly what was called for after last weekend. But I mean, generally, what do you make of that game? A tough game to call with so many changes and such a difficult to predict. Well, both sides at the moment, certainly the Italian side, though. Yeah,
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. So 17.5 at the moment. Wales are giving the start, of course. Italy getting the start 17.5. Early in the week, before we knew about this team news, was like 22 around the place, 21, 22. I didn't see it get to 23. I could be around there. So 10 changes, and obviously this was probably signposted for a long way out with Warren Gatland that he was going to make these changes. The only thing I would wonder about it, I get that if you're going to make wholesale changes, you're going to give the likes of Thomas Young and Jonah Holmes their debuts. This is the game to do. You're not going to give it to them against England at the Millennium Stadium, or the Principality Stadium, as it's so fondly known now. And I just wonder, they didn't play well the first half last weekend, Wales, that is, and they finished strong. Credit where it's due. They actually showed that they're a really together team. A team that aren't together or don't have that fighting spirit don't come back from that, albeit against a French team who, gifted them back into it. But the 10 changes, and you touched on Dan Biggar, I think he'd have been starting anyway, because Anscombe had a bit of a mare, and I think Biggar is absolutely nailed on to start in 2 weeks' time against England. And I'd probably worried maybe about Alec Davis at scrum half. I watch him a lot, but he was at the Ospreys last year, the Scarlets this year. Sorry, the other way around. He was at the Scarlets last year and the Ospreys this year, and my God, he slows down a lot of quick ball that the forwards get. He kind of manages to slow ball down. A real big fan of Tomas Williams from Cardiff, the scrum half. I think, having made his debut in Paris last week, this would have been an opportune time to give him another game. Definitely an easier time of it in Rome. Italy, for me, I mean, that scoreline completely flattered them last week, considering they only scored 3 points up to the 69th minute. They got three converted tries in the last 11 minutes. And, you've seen some really good signs this year, Al, with Treviso last season as well, and Zebra plays some good rugby. Treviso especially, they're in the top half of the Pro 14. And skill-wise, attacking-wise, they've actually brought their games on, but defensively, they just cannot defend. And that's why last year, the way I was attacking Italy games was generally backing the overs blind, because as much as they were conceding tries, they're also well capable of picking a few tries up. They have a few backs there that are pretty decent. I think Tommaso Allen has been really good in getting the backline going in the last couple of years. He's been pretty good. Benvenuti, Michel Campagnaro in the centre, who played in the wing last week. They have guys, and Jaden Hayward, the fullback, they have guys who can score tries, who can get tries. And it's weird. I mean, you look at it and, 17 and a half, I struggle to kind of make the case there for Italy, but you could maybe make the case for them in the first half, because Wales have so many new combinations on Saturday that it's going to take a while for them to mesh, and maybe back Wales at half time if it's any bit of a contest, because they will run the legs from them. That Welsh team are probably the fittest team in the Six Nations still. They have been for a few years. Warren Gatland, he's done some great jobs there with the conditioning of Wales. So, I mean, look, you're looking at it. The total is probably my strongest play, though, Al. It's not out yet on Matchbook. I've seen some 52.5 elsewhere, so I'm thinking it's going to be very similar on Matchbook. So I want to be with the over here. I really wanted a late 40s. I knew I wasn't going to get it, because if someone shows up 49.5, you're going to get absolutely holed in. But I would predict that this line stays at 52.5 on Friday afternoon. Watch it go off at 53, 54, 55, probably closer to 55 on Saturday. And enjoy the second half of this one, because the last 20 minutes, if you need even 20 points in the last 20 minutes, chances are Wales, bringing a few fresh guys off the bench, will get it. So sticking with the over on Italy, Al, every game, back the over with Italy. We did it last year, we made money, and I'm going to stick with it this year, because it's a surefire for success, I think. Sure recipe for success even.
First half handicap, we've got Italy plus 8.5. That's at 1.833 at the minute. It's generally plus 8 elsewhere. You can see that number even coming down a bit more as people sort of wade into it. Because I think everyone has this image that Italy are a first half team and a first half team only. And exactly as you say, with the new combinations with Wales, might take a little time to settle. Italy really fired up at home. Do you feel there's value in that one? You mentioned it yourself, obviously, but you didn't commit to it, so I'm guessing you don't. But just curious where you stand on that one.
I think if you're playing a handicap, it probably is the value play there. I'd probably be wanting more. I mean, if you look earlier in the week when I said that line was 22, if I could get up to 10 and a half, I probably would take it from there. But it's just not enough points. And you'll have to lay a bit of juice there. Like you said, it's 1.884 at the moment. I'm no major interest. If I got plus money, if I got the 2.06 that's available on Wales on the other side, I possibly would do it. You're kind of hoping that Wales do have a bit of kind of stumbling, getting into the different guys making their debuts. Few guys, haven't played in a while. Different, the center combination, the back row combination, getting used to each other. The only thing there though is, I mean, you've Dan Bigger, and Italy have been a very undisciplined team in recent times, so he will kick goals all day long, even though Halfpenny obviously isn't playing. So that's what would turn me off. For me, I'm far keener to play the points in this game, because I do think there will be points. Weather in Rome on Saturday evening is pretty good too, 13 degrees with a very, very, very slight breeze that wouldn't even make any difference there. So yeah, happy to stay with the points in Italy. That's probably my best bet of the weekend, because I think that 52.5, like I said, Al, it will be backed. There's not going to be too many people look for under money here, and it will be backed, and it could go off much higher than that.
Have you found a hotel near the Stade de France so you can ring? Sorry, the Stadio
Olimpico.
You can ring up and check on the weather for.
I have to have a look. Yeah, absolutely. My Italian not so hot though, Al. So I may need a bit of Google Translate for that. But yeah, I'm kind of confident. I think that with the weather you were talking about there, I think you can get a good sense of it even just watching on TV beforehand. If there's any bit of a doubt, I think then you have to start digging into it. I do know some guys are especially clever about watching radar stuff coming in for second half. We've seen in the NFL with our friend Brad Allen. Is very clever at watching radars, but I don't know if I have enough time in my hands yet for that, as much as Brad would have.
We only need one professor at Matchbook. It's
absolutely, one professor is enough for all of us. But I think some strong enough bets. I think England game, again, like I said, it may be one that I kind of look to see how my wagers go on Saturday, see how I'm doing with the Ireland 1-12 and the Italy-Wales over. But right now, it can be only England for me. I think the French are just getting worse, to be totally honest with you. I love, I love Al too, like the amount of people, and I saw last year Six Nations before, that make the case for France and the outright. Oh, we're France 20-1. They're France, and you're like, oh my god. Like, they're not the French team of 20 years ago. Even with Laporte, who was there, like, in the 2000s, they were a far better team. They were way more organized. They might have been a bit dull back then, but by God, they got results, and they won Six Nations championships also.
Yeah. So England, your bet of the weekend then?
No, absolutely not. I think England are probably my least confident one. My over in Italy-Wales bet of the weekend, 52.5, if you can get that. If you can get 51.5, even better. You never know what goes up in Matchbook. And Ireland 1-12 at 2.6. I think that price might go a bit out. Actually, you might get about 2.8 on that, just looking, and Ireland 1-12. But happy enough. Happy enough with last weekend, and very confident of making a few winning bets this weekend.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully we can find some winners this weekend. I'm sure you'll be back next 2 weeks' time, isn't it now, with a follow-up? But hopefully got some winners there. I do like the look of the England France bet a little bit more than you. I think you talked me into that one a little bit more. I was leaning France before this, but I'm feeling it a bit more now. But yeah, good luck with whatever you're betting this weekend, and thanks a lot, Sully.
Cheers, Al. Thanks for taking the time. And don't forget, folks, if you haven't got a Matchbook account, sign up today for £10 risk-free bet. And you can back France. Allez, le bleu.